Welcome, crafty friends. I'm Lisa, and I am thrilled to be a part of the Whimsy Stamps Tricks or Treats Hop featuring the Cutie Batootie stamps and dies. Now, this hop is dedicated to Whimsy Stamps' very own Queen of Halloween, Deb Davis, creative director for Whimsy. Let's create some spooky vibes for Deb and hope it lifts her spirits. Later in the video, I'll explain how Deb inspired my design. Before we get started, I do need to mention that all the details about the hop are listed in the description box below. Be sure to leave a comment and subscribe for a chance to win that $100 gift certificate from Whimsy Stamps. And this month's hop is being hosted by our design team sister, Kathy. She selected the featured products and will select the winner, which will be announced on all channels on November 2nd. Let's get started now that we've covered the basics. Here are some tricks that boost my final card design. Now I'm going to be using the following products: the Cutie Batootie stamps and outline dies, which are sold separately, the pierced and stitched circle dies, Galaxy Galore background stamp, and the tree assortment die set, along with a few other products that I'll talk about as I'm using them. In my mind's eye, I can see Deb rolling her eyes and saying, "Wake me when it's Halloween," come November 1st. So I decided it would be fun to use the sleeping bat and that sentiment on this card to honor her. I'm going to stamp both the image and sentiment onto a piece of Avalanche white 80-pound cardstock. This is Nina cardstock. My image is stamped with Memento TUXEDO black ink, which is alcohol marker compatible, and I'm going to be using Copic markers to color the image shortly. The VersaFine ONYX black ink stamps fine details clearly, making it the best ink for sentiments, so I'm going to stamp my sentiment using that VersaFine ONYX black ink. Now, before we talk about coloring, I want to point out I left my stamps in my Mini Misty because we'll revisit that shortly. And my goal here is to color this image with as few markers as possible, starting with that ear area and E93, E95, and E99. Now, there aren't a lot of complicated techniques involved here, just a simple coloring process based on light to dark or dark to light, depending on your process. Moving on to the head and body, I chose neutral grays. I'm using N2, N4, N6, and N8. Again, no complicated techniques, just a simple coloring process based on light to dark or dark to light. Now here's one of my tricks I use after coloring an image that still looks a little flat. Using my colorless blender, I dab the nib on areas where I'd like to add some light and texture. The colorless blender solution does push the ink out, so if you're using this technique too close to the stamped lines, the ink will push out past those lines, so keep that in mind. Now that I'm done coloring the image, I'm going to go ahead and run it through the die cutting machine with the coordinating outline die. We're going to take our whole piece of paper, put it back in our Mini Misty, lay our image back into the die cut area, and then we're going to stamp over this image again. And this helps to define all those beautiful lines of the image. Only this time we're not using Memento TUXEDO black ink. We're going to use our VersaFine because remember, VersaFine ink is perfect for details and it just stamps beautiful clear lines every time. So I'm going to stamp this a couple of times with my VersaFine ink and get those nice crisp black lines to show those beautiful details of that image. So just go ahead and set that image aside and give that ink some time to dry so it doesn't smudge. In the meantime, let's go ahead and pull out our pierced and stitched round die that we're going to be using. I'm using the 3 3/8 of an inch wide die. And then I'm going to pull out one of the trees from the tree assortment. I don't have a die that cuts like a branch, so we're going to use this tree die as our branch. I'm centering that circle die on a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch white cardstock panel. I'm going to run it through the die cutting machine along with the tree die that I picked out. We're going to cut 3 of those out of black cardstock. So I have my cling red rubber background stamp here. This is the Galaxy Galore. We're going to just use the glass media mat to let that cling onto that glass media mat and hold it in place. We have our die cut white cardstock here. We've inked that stamp up with VersaFine ONYX black ink again for the details. And we're going to stamp the front of that die cut panel by laying a piece of scrap paper over the panel and then holding it in place with our fingers while we run our other hand over it to transfer the stamped image to the cardstock. Now, if you're not comfortable with this technique, by all means, use your MISTI to do your stamping. So as you can see, I've actually went ahead and did a little bit of ink blending on my card base, directly to the card base. And I just used Distress Oxide ink and scattered straw. I wanted it to be a light color. Now I want to add some shimmer to this, but I don't want it to react with that oxide ink. So I'm spraying my shimmer spray in the air and then dragging the card base through the mist. And what it does is it creates this beautiful shimmer without letting it react with the ink. So you won't end up with any splotches or anything like that. You'll just end up with this beautiful inked up area that has this gorgeous shine over it. So here's another trick for you. While you're adding your trees, stacking them on top of each other, you want to make sure that the trunk part of the tree lines up nice and neat. But the branches, don't fuss with them. Let them do their own thing. You don't want to sit there and try to line every one of those little branches up. You will be there all day long. And by not fussing with them and letting them do their own thing, you're creating dimension because it just looks like they're just more branches, layers and layers of branches there running in all directions. And it just creates this beautiful dimension for your card. So just glue, stack them together, keeping the trunk nice and neat. Put an acrylic block on the top of them while they dry. Do some cleanup or whatever else you need to do, and then come back to it. So we're going to start to assemble the card, and I'm placing the branch where I want it, and I'm going to add some glue along the outer edges where it's going to hit on the back side of my panel that we stamped earlier. We're going to go ahead and line the panel up over it. Press down over those glued areas, making sure that that branch is sticking to the back side of this front panel. And then we're going to flip it upside down. And our branch is going to be glued in place. We're going to let that sit while we add our mounting foam to the back of this and dry. So I'm just using the big roll of the 3M mounting foam. I'm cutting it down to size to add to the back of this. And I'm even going to cut some really small pieces to go on the back side of that branch that we created. And then we'll go ahead and center this up on the front of our card base. So I have another trick for you. When you're lining your card panels up across your card base or on your card base, line up everything from the top of the card base, wherever your fold's at. That's what you want to use to line everything up nice and straight across the top of your card. That way, if things aren't lined up perfectly along the bottom, if your stamped card panel's not long enough to fit your card base, you can take this to the paper trimmer and then just snip that off. If you line up along the bottom, you're going to have a new card base because you're going to have to cut it from the top. So just keep that in mind. If you work from the top down, you always have some wiggle room there to cut off anything that needs to be cut off. So we're going to add some mounting foam to the back of our bat. We're going to be mindful of his ears. I learned that while I was in the process of this. So here we have him. And what I did was I kind of positioned him so it looked like his feet were touching the tree instead of overlapping the image. I put it up underneath the edge. So I'm going to take my comic speech bubble dies. I love these. You see me use them a lot with little critters like this. They're perfect for critters. And I'm going to die cut my sentiment, add mounting foam to the back of it, and then I'm going to go ahead and add that to the front of my card base. Now let's talk about the inside of the card. This is something that I usually don't share in my videos, but I thought today would be a great day to show you how you can go about adding some details to the inside of your card. Now I'm going to be using Whimsy Stamps You're My Boo stamp set to stamp Have a Happy Halloween on the inside of the card. And then I'm going to grab a couple of random Whimsy stamps that have some bats and a spider on it. And I'm going to stamp some bats up around the top of the Halloween, a spider down in the bottom right-hand corner. Then I'm just going to take my T-ruler and draw a line from the bottom of the N in Halloween down to my spider to finish off the inside of my card. That's going to wrap up this card process. You can leave a comment letting me know what you think about this adorable stamp set. Now don't forget to leave a comment and subscribe to each stop along the hop. I have the next stop along the hop with all the details listed down below in the description box. The winner will be announced November 2nd, and we're going to announce the winner on all the participating channels at some point that day. Please take into consideration that we work, so some people will post at different times. I want to thank Kathy for hosting the hop. It was a blast. And for more information on the products I used in the video, you can check out the affiliate links directly below and then head over to the Whimsy Stamps website. I appreciate the time you spent with me today, and I'm wishing you all a happy Halloween. And until next time, take care.